Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. So today's video is a book recommendation video, and these are recommendations for the books that just really stressed me out so much. So it's gonna be a mix of thriller and horror. I have 6 books to talk about, and I did not stretch it. That's why I only have 6 books, because these are just the 6 books that stand out in my mind. I did not even look through my Goodreads. These are just the 6 books that are imprinted upon my brain for being the 6 books that gave me the most anxiety when I was reading them. And that doesn't even really mean these are the 6 most scary books I've ever read, because they're not even, some of them are not even that scary. They just like really made me so tense. They made like my whole body clench up, you know? They might be good books for you to read in October. It just depends if you like that feeling or not. But also I think the ability to get tense during a book is quite personal, so these may or may not work for you. I'm curious to hear if you have read any of these. Did they make you nervous when you were reading them? Did they make you stressed out? Because they sure as hell stressed me out. The first book I have to talk about is a thriller. This is Here and Gone by Halin Beck. This is a thriller I don't see a ton of people talking about. I listened to the audiobook for it about a year ago, and I really had to listen to this audiobook in small sections because I kept having to stop it because I was getting too stressed out. My heart was beating too fast, and it was like making me frustrated by how like stressful of a situation this woman was in. So basically, a woman is trying to escape her abusive ex-husband. She has her kids in the car, she's driving cross country, and she gets stopped on the drive by a police officer. And the police officer is like being a total jerk. I almost used a different word there, but let's just go with jerk. He's being a total jerk, and he's dinging her on all of these little things, and he ends up being like, "Ma'am, I have to take you back to the station." And she's like, "For what? What am I being taken back for?" So, and she has kids and she's alone. So basically the cops have to take her kids. She goes back to the station. She's in a cell. And then she's like, "Okay, where are my kids? Like, what'd you do with my kids?" And he goes, "What kids?" So this involves a lot of gaslighting, obviously. It involves a lot of really terrible situations. It's about a single mother. There is domestic abuse. Check trigger warnings for all of these books because they all like really negatively affected me in a couple different ways. But I think this is a great thriller if you want to feel some thrills, because yeah, it was stressful. It was a stressful read. But I did end up enjoying it, okay? It ended up being a great book, but yeah, I had to listen to it in small sections because it was a lot. The next book I have to talk about is No Exit. So this is a book you've probably seen before, but here I am, another booktuber, telling you that No Exit is a tense book. It is non-stop. It is the most tense atmosphere ever. And so if you don't know what No Exit is about, it's a thriller, but it does have some horror scenes in it. One of those books that I believe has a genre blend of both thriller and horror. And this girl is trying to get home to her family before a snowstorm. She gets caught in the snowstorm. She has to go to this gas station and kind of wait it out with a couple other people in the gas station. When she goes out to her car to grab something, she sees that in someone else's car is a kid in a cage. And so she goes back into the gas station that they're all stuck at, knowing that one of these people has a kid in a cage in their car. And she's like, "What the heck do I do?" So, and things kind of spiral from there. This book is very much non-stop. It's one of those books that the entirety of the book takes place in just a couple of hours, because it's an action-packed couple of hours. And I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, but it will leave you tensed up. I was reading it during the snowpocalypse that Texas had, where we didn't have power for a couple of days, didn't have running water. So I was just reading it in the dark because I was not prepared. I had no candles, so my apartment was just dark when the sun was down. And I was reading it in the dark on my phone, being like, "Oh my God, I know my situation is not ideal right now, but at least I'm not going through what this character is going through." So the next book I have to talk about is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. So this is a bit of an odd book because it is just a thriller, yet this is the only book that I've gotten like legit nightmares about. I could not read this during the nighttime. And I love horror books. I love thriller books. I read them all the time. I read extreme horror. But for some reason, Behind Closed Doors just affected me so much. It really like made me so nervous the whole time I was reading it. This is a domestic thriller about a woman who falls for a guy. Guy ends up not being that great. She's trying to escape the guy, but things are very difficult. She is not able to escape easily. So I'm being very vague because I think it's better to not really know anything. But again, this was stressful. This was a frustrating read. This made me tense up. It gave me some nightmares. So if you have not yet read it, go ahead and give it a try, because while this is a domestic thriller, in my opinion, this is one of the most anxiety-inducing domestic thrillers that I've ever read. The next book on this list is a pretty controversial pick. Okay, it's controversial, but it is Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I thought this book was really, really tense the whole way through. I mean, are the characters dumb? Yeah, they're super dumb. They make terrible decisions, but their terrible decisions gave me so much anxiety when I was reading this book. It made me so nervous when I was reading this book, because even though they were making terrible decisions, I still wanted them to be making better decisions. And this is another one of those books that kind of the entire book takes place in just a couple of hours. So I think that leads to a really stressful situation, because, you know, you are with these characters for every minute of their experience in this book, and same with No Exit. So it was a wild ride, and I loved it. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was incredibly entertaining. Is it objectively a well-written book? No. There's a lot of weird plot points. There's a lot of plot holes. There's a lot of characters making a decision that no human ever would decide to make, that is purely for the plot. But I don't know, this book still just worked for me. And I know a ton of people hate that book, and I think it's valid. In fact, I agree with a lot of the criticisms that the 1-star reviews have. But those criticisms just added to my enjoyment. So I recommend this book, but with a grain of salt, that you might hate it. You might hate it, but you might love it. And if you love it, you could join me in my love for this book, and we'll stand against the haters, you know? But basically the synopsis for this book is a girl at college is trying to get home. She is trying to get a ride from people, but she's not able to get a ride, and then she finds on this ride-sharing app that someone is driving back the same way she is going, so she gets in the car with a stranger late at night for a long road trip, and along the way she realizes that this stranger might have some links to the serial killer that is loose on her campus. The next book to talk about is Misery by Stephen King. This is one of my favorite Stephen Kings because, again, the whole book is just like leaves you with such tense feelings. So basically we follow a male writer, and he is just writing books, living his best life, you know, and he has a female fan that is a huge fan of him. And she really wants the next book in the series. She thinks that the series that he has written is the best series ever. It's like the best thing on earth. So she kidnaps him, as you do, and forces him to write the next book in the series, to make a sequel, because he was ending the series, and she was like, no sir, you're not gonna end the series. So it's a kidnapping story. It's about him trying to escape from her, but she is not, she has some issues. And you know, the times when he is trying to escape are so tense. I mean, I keep using the word tense, but that is the theme of this video, right? All of these books are tense. And it's just like a horror movie when you're watching in silence and you're just waiting for the character to turn around or for a noise to be made. That feeling is this whole book. And there is a snowy setting in this book. So if you don't get to it in fall, this is actually a great winter horror book to read as well. And the last book I have to talk about is The Push. This book, again, made me feel so nervous, made me clench up the whole time. This is a book about motherhood, and a mom has a daughter, and she thinks the daughter might be evil. And this daughter is like 5 years old, and she's like, yikes, I think my daughter is actually the devil. And so it's just about this book following motherhood, following the struggles of motherhood, talking about mental health, and us trying to figure out if this daughter really is evil or if this mom just needs a little bit of help. The Push is a hard read, okay? All of these are hard reads. The Push and Here and Gone, because they both have these themes of motherhood in them, I don't know, motherhood being in books really hits hard. I'm not a mother, but for some reason, like, reading about moms is really difficult for me when these moms are being put through it. And the moms in The Push and Here and Gone are put through it. But I highly recommend The Push if you want those feelings of anxiety, of nerves, of being tensed up, because the whole time in The Push, it's a struggle. But The Push, I just want to make it clear, The Push is not your typical thriller or mystery or even horror. It's much more like a blend of literary fiction with some thrilling moments, with some mysterious moments, with some horrific moments. But if you're looking for a more fast-paced thriller or horror, The Push is not going to give that to you. All right, those are the 6 books that stand out in my mind as making me so nervous when I was reading them. Again, they're not necessarily the books that scared me the most, they are just the books that made me tense up the most. I'm curious to know if you all have books that have made you do this, and if you do, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what books have made you the most nervous while you were reading them. And if you liked this video, please give me a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!